The opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks are not necessarily those of its sponsors, or of Microsoft Corporation, its partners, or employees. .NET Rocks is a production of Franklin's Net, which is solely responsible for its content. Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter. Rockheads, uninstall Crystal Reports version 9477.2 and listen up. It's time for another stellar episode of .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers with Carl Franklin and Rory Blythe. This is Jeff Maciolik, here to announce show number 93 with guest Brian Larson, recorded live Friday, December 10th, 2004. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter, and now offering hands-on VBNet, ASP.NET, and C# classes. Online at www.franklins.net. And by Data Dynamics, makers of ActiveReports.net. Simple, powerful, and cost-effective reporting for Windows Forms and ASP.NET web applications. Online at www.datadynamics.com. Support is also provided by Code Magazine, Microsoft Technologies in-depth for IT managers and developers. Online at www.code-magazine.com. And now, the man who just told Rory he could keep his phlegm-covered microphone as a Christmas present, Carl Franklin.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks very much, Jeff. And this is .NET Rocks, episode 90-something, and I'm Carl in New London, Connecticut. And as always, my partner in crime out there in Portland, Oregon, coughing phlegm all over that microphone, Rory Blythe. How are you, my friend?
Sick.
Yeah. So what's going on, man? How long's it been?
Well, I have been on the road for a long time, like long enough to miss rent twice. That's how long I've been on the road. And as I think I mentioned in a previous show, I don't remember or not, I went blind about a month ago, and that seems to have been the beginning of my body just quitting and shutting down, and I had bronchitis for like 3 weeks. And
wait a minute. Rewind. You said you went blind? Is that what you said?
Temporarily, yeah, for my migraine thing. Right. I went blind while I was giving a talk in Tacoma, actually.
Wow, how long did that...
Very inconvenient time to go blind.
How long did it last?
Over an hour.
Really?
And I was experiencing aphasia, which is the inability to understand spoken language. So
wow.
People would talk to me, and I would hear wah 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 wah, and that's interesting.
Wow.
But like I say, I got better. But then I got bronchitis, and I have been coughing up like neon green sputum for the past several weeks, and I'm feeling a little better now. This is actually me feeling really good. I feel really good today. I just feel fabulous.
Cool.
But I still sound like I'm dying. I sound very consumptive. But yeah, things have been going well. Been doing the whole MSDN events thing. And I've been having a really good time. I was out in Salt Lake City yesterday. Had never been. Absolutely gorgeous place. Have you been?
I have. I was a kid, but I do remember it being beautiful.
Yeah, I had no idea. I really had no idea. And the crowd was great. The crowd was perfect. Very interactive. Really good time. So I'm actually in a really good mood in spite of the fact that I'm dying. But it wouldn't be a regular week for my life anyway if I didn't have some sort of physical malady, would it? So how are you?
And you deal with it so well. You do. I don't know if I could deal with it as well as you do. Well, and anybody who can laugh at going blind and people going wah 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 wah, that's cool.
Well, I don't have a choice.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
The blood vessels in my head are going to do what they're going to do, and
you should make a song. You should write a little tune to let all of us experience that through the tune. I don't know.
Who are you, my agent?
Just an idea, man.
Why don't you back off, man?
All right.
You're smothering me. Okay. Oh, speaking of which, what's been going on? I think I've missed 2 shows, haven't I?
Yeah.
Is that how many I've missed?
Yeah. And so we're laying it to rest. The rumors that I don't know if there were rumors, but now there are apparently.
So I've just been very, very, really freaky busy. Very busy. But
yep.
Yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, how are you?
I'm doing well. As you know, Rory, we announced the arrival of the .NET Rocks movie this week.
Right.
The .NET Rocks 2004, the movie. And we had been silent on it for quite a while, just various little technical hurdles. This is the first time I've done edited a 2-hour DVD, and done a commercial production. And so, there was a lot of little gotchas that got in the way, none the least of which is they called me up. I basically sent my hard drive to the manufacturer because, I didn't have any other container for the data that was that big because, it's gigabytes of data, right?
Yeah. And
the output essentially was in the wrong format. And so it was either they send it back to me and I send them the right, re-render it and send them the right files and hope it works. And I said, you know what, screw that. I'm just going to send you my machine. So I packaged up my computer. I took out the non-essential hard drives, the ones that didn't have the stuff on it. And Tom, man, he just totally smoked it in like 2 hours. Got it all ready and packaged and tested and threw it in a box. And they got it and they did output and I got it proofed and it's going to manufacturing now. We've had about 88 orders so far. It's basically $10 and $5 for shipping no matter where you are in the world. With the shipping has been paid for, subsidized by Data Dynamics. And so essentially we're making it real easy. $5 shipping and handling, and that covers the handling costs.
Nice.
And so it's cheap. It's a good Christmas present, and it's funny, man, It's not only, you get to watch .NET Rocks like on video, you get to watch a show, but we also went to, Tech Ed with a camera and we interviewed a lot of people and I got some footage from DevTeach and there's just a lot of fun. And the show is the one where Richard Campbell talks about water-cooled PCs. So,
Great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's some surprises too. Well, anyway, that's the deal. And hey, before we interview Brian, I have some mail, actually. Another rumor that's been going around is we've stopped doing all of our mail and news and everything else, and that's just not true. It's just that we haven't gotten any mail, and Rory hasn't been here to do the news. So this one says is from John Deary, senior programmer at Cornerstone Real Estate Advisors, LLC. Hi, Carl and crew. Long-time listener, first-time emailer. I've enjoyed .NET Rocks for some time now. It is always cool to see a fellow Connecticuter. I don't know if that's a word or not. Word doesn't think it's a word. Connecticuter. Probably Connecticutite is probably right. Wouldn't you think?
Connecticut. Yeah, I never figured it out while I was there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool to see a fellow Connecticut resident in the spotlight. That makes it easy. Doesn't seem like there are that many famous people from our little state. So it's nice to see people that are even quasi-famous from here. At any rate, well, actually, a lot of famous people are in Connecticut. They're just down toward the New York side of Connecticut, At any rate, I thought that I would pass on a request for a show topic. It would be great to get a roundup of the different grids that are out there for both smart clients and ASP.NET. It seems like there are many options, but no one place to get info on the strengths and weaknesses of each. Maybe an audio shootout is in order. I would be remiss in closing any email to you without asking for some sweet .NET Rocks swag. It would certainly go a long way to make my coworkers insanely jealous. I can see myself winning arguments simply by looking over at a .NET Rocks mug and saying something like, hey, who has the .NET Rocks mug? Done. Keep up the good work. John, you know we have to send you a mug. Maybe we'll send you 2 mugs just because you're such a sweet guy. So
you'll be twice as right.
But that's a great idea, isn't it? And you know what would be cool? Because you've read these magazines that have like product roundups and stuff, and you know that like the advertiser that pays the most money gets the winning product, Why
don't we do that?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Where we get the money.
That's what I'm saying,
Okay.
If anybody's going to sell out, it should be us.
We've been trying hard enough for the past, years. So
that's true.
God.
That's true. Send us the money.
Geez,
well, anyway, I was
paying attention.
Yeah, I was thinking we could actually have some listeners who use these different things and who actually have experience with the grids, ASP.NET and Smart Client grid controls, to come on the show and give us a review. So if you are a .NET Rocks listener and you have experience with, we're talking what, Component 1, what's the Infragistics,
Sweet. Yeah.
The other guys. There's a bunch of them. Even Data Dynamics has one. And there's a bunch of them. So if you have experience with one of these grid controls and you want to... And money. Yeah, that's right.
And you want to pay us.
Totally free, totally unbiased. We'll be your Consumer Reports, man. We will be your sounding board where you can give your experiences to the public through us. How cool is that? Okay, next one. Hello, Carl and Rory. I have just been listening to the Richard Hale Shaw Speaks .NET Rock show. Richard states... Managed C++ in particular is best when you have to solve problems involving both managed and unmanaged code in the same space, in particular inside the same assembly. Am I right in saying that this is also possible in C#? If you use the fixed keyword, then that allows you to work with unmanaged objects. Could you or Richard tell me if there's any difference between what you can do in unmanaged C++ and what you can do in unmanaged C#? This is assuming that in both cases you are writing a partially managed, partially unmanaged assembly. If there is no difference, then there is more of a question over the usage of managed C++. It would therefore come down to your own preference for language. Thank you, David Eggins, Australia. And Richard actually replied. He says, David, I'll address these in an order that hopefully will clear up some misconceptions. You asked about the differences between what you can do in unmanaged C++ versus unmanaged C#. There is no such thing as unmanaged C#. The only C# is managed C#. The C# compiler always generates managed code assemblies managed by the .NET CLR at runtime. But because C++ existed prior to .NET, native C++, or unmanaged C++, can produce code that executes completely independently of the .NET framework. Managed C++ lets you create mixed-mode assemblies that contain the usual manifest metadata IL combination found in .NET assemblies created by C# and VBNet, but that also contain unmanaged code, effectively stored as a binary resource that can be loaded and invoked from managed code. You add the unmanaged code by literally adding the appropriate includes and library linkages to your native C++ code. The MC++ compiler will compile both into a single mixed-mode assembly. Plus, you can write new MC++ classes that are wrappers around calls to the native code classes. You can't expose the native code classes outside the assembly, but you can expose the managed ones. So, you can use the managed classes as shims that can let C# or VBNet invoke the native code. Can C# or VBNet do this? Not exactly. You can use C# or VBNet to invoke DLL-based unmanaged code, and you'll get the same net result as having managed C++ code invoke the native code. Managed C++ uses the same mechanism as the DLL import attribute found in platform invoke, or pinvoke. But MC++ has the added advantage of letting you create managed wrappers around the native code, making it more palatable to the C# and VBNet code that calls it. I think, and it's almost done, I think this feature gives managed C++ a tactical advantage for invoking legacy code, but only if the legacy code is written in C++ or C, and the source is available. Otherwise, it has to use pinvoke or com-interrupt just like C# and VBNet do. Finally, I'd like to add that the complexity of C++ syntax, and I know I programmed it for 13 years, led me to C#, and I've never looked back. If you're going to produce the same result, managed code assemblies, and you get the same capabilities on the managed side, why bother with C++ syntax and rules? The new managed C++ coming out in the Whidbey timeframe may give me pause for a second look, but that remains to be seen. Hope this helps. Richard Hale Shaw. Thank you, Richard. That was really a really good explanation of what's going on there. I think what David was talking about wasn't unmanaged C# as much as unsafe mode. I think that's what he was getting confused, which is still managed. So that's the mail. And before we get going, I have a shout out to make to Damien McGivern out there in Belfast, Northern Ireland. He says, "Hi everyone, could you please give a quick shout out to all the .NET Rocks listeners living in Northern Ireland and tell them about the starting up of the Northern Ireland Microsoft Technologies User Group, or NIMTUG." I like that, NIMTUG. Registration and further details can be found on the website nimtug.org, nimtug.org. Many thanks, Davey McGimmern and Damien, group coordinator of said NIMTUG. Have a Guinness for me, man. Well, our guest tonight is Brian Larson, MCSD, MCDBA, and he has 19 years experience in the computer industry and 15 years experience as a consultant creating database applications. He's currently the Chief of Technology for Superior Consulting Services in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a Microsoft consulting partner for reporting services. Brian served on the reporting services development team as a consultant to Microsoft. In that role, he contributed to the original code base of reporting services. Brian has mentored Fortune 500 companies and early adopters in the use and best practices of reporting services. Brian is the author of Microsoft SQL Server 2000 Reporting Services and the forthcoming Delivering Business Intelligence with Microsoft SQL Server 2005, both from Osborne McGraw-Hill. Brian can be contacted at blarson@teamscs.com. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
I met you at Dev Connections.
Yes.
You were speaking on the SQL track.
Yeah. Gave that a go for the first time and had a great time doing it and a great time at the conference.
Yeah. Did you get to actually see any of the other talks?
Yeah, I sat on a few. I stayed mostly kind of over on the SQL side of the track. But,
yeah.
I did get to take in a few.
Which ones did you like the best?
A good conference. Well, took in a couple on 2005, SQL 2005, and the new stuff coming there.
Right. And
that looks like it's going to be very exciting for the SQL community.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So
I caught Kimberly Tripp, who is just a fantastic speaker on some SQL performance issues, and
she has
encouraged anyone who is within earshot of any of her presentations to check that out. She does a great job.
Yeah, she does. She's been on our show before, and she wouldn't stop. I mean, she just would. It was a 2.5 hour show.
I can believe that.
Remember that, Rory?
Oh, well, I mean, duh.
Yeah. Our heads were spinning. She was dynamo, too. She was answering our questions in full detail, adding commentary, and answering questions in the chat room all at the same time. Yeah. Well, anyway, so you've been into reporting services. Now, I read in your bio one thing that stuck out was that you contributed to the code base.
Yeah,
so
I actually ended up having the opportunity to work with Brian Welker and the reporting services development team and do a little C# development back when it was still a beta product, which was a little intimidating using Microsoft's new product before it was even out and trying to keep up with all of the internal developers and learn all this new environment. But it was great fun. They were super people to work with and very patient in bringing us along. And actually, myself and another developer, Marty Vogel from Superior Consulting, contributed code to the rendering portion of reporting services and then turned that over to the internal development team, and hopefully a line or two of our original code is still in there so we can claim some piece of it.
And this is a managed application, right? So you wrote
That's correct. That's correct.
C#, VB.NET,
completely written in C# from beginning to end.
Nice. So it all comes down to print documents, right?
That's
cool.
We've got several different output rendering formats that reporting services will produce, from an HTML output to PDF that will be, of course, more printer-friendly. There's a TIFF image output, Excel format, and then some machine-readable outputs.
Sweet. Hey, I want to ask Rory. Rory, have you had experience with other reporting services, things like Crystal or other report engines?
Back when Visual Studio was in beta, I was tinkering with a whole lot of this stuff, and I was messing around a bit with Crystal. And I'm not saying this to bash anything. I'm not trying to be like mean or make a statement about anything, but I actually found it easier to write my own code from the ground up to do charting than it was to actually use Crystal.
Yeah.
So I wound up just scrapping everything that I'd done with Crystal and writing all of the reports by hand. Actually wound up doing it with Java. I'm like saying all kinds of stuff here that I probably shouldn't say, but
that's all right.
So it was not the best experience.
What had you used Crystal before? And I'll ask Brian the same thing. Had you used Crystal before, like in VB6, VB5? Because I had used it back then.
Yeah, I've used Crystal some in VB6.
How about you, Rory?
No, I stayed away from it, actually, and I didn't really have a use for it back when I was doing VB6 stuff.
In VB5, I thought it was okay in that time frame, but that was in the middle of DLL.
I understand that what happened with Crystal is that it wound up just bloating and getting totally out of control, and the API just sort of took off, and they kind of lost control of it. And I don't know, if that's the case, it might have been one of those situations where customers want to see change and they want to see additions, or else they're not going to upgrade. They're not going to pay for anything, and might have shot themselves in the foot doing that. That's just my guess, and that's just based on what I've heard. I don't really know, though. Mm-hmm. Is that at all like what happened? I mean, the API itself, when I was looking at the docs, looked like a whole career. Like you could really just be a Crystal Reports programmer and not have to worry about anything else and just specialize in that. The API looked complex enough.
Yeah, I agree. Also, deploying an application that included Crystal was a challenge in and of itself. Yeah. And as you said, DLL hell and getting everything in the right place at the right time was definitely a mind-boggling experience. I
remember like when IIS 1.0 came out and everybody was hot. I actually wrote one of the first articles on it, and when it came out, some guy from Crystal came up to me at a VBits and said, "Hey, you got to check out our new stuff, man." What new stuff? Yeah, we're like, reports over the web. And the first thought I had was, oh my God, here's a bloated program, combined with a bloat-sensitive platform that's in 1.0. This can't be good. Mm-hmm. But I guess, that's where we've finally landed, reports over the web.
Right.
Although now we need big old SQL servers to deal with it. So we've talked about this before, and of course our sponsor, Data Dynamics, has a reporting engine. But what's the difference between something like, ActiveReports.net and an enterprise reporting system like Crystal Enterprise or like SQL Reporting Services?
The way that reporting services works is you actually have a server that is going to be the source for all of your report output, rather than having reports embedded right in the EXE or in a supporting DLL.
Okay.
And then when your application is looking to provide a report, it's going to make an HTTP call to that report server. It can do that either through a URL interface in the case of reporting services, or through a web service interface, and then bring back that report in your desired format, any of those rendering formats, and then display that in a browser, display that in a PDF format, whatever's appropriate.
So the obvious benefit is keeping all the reporting code on one server and in one place. Is there a point at which your reporting needs have to shift from an embedded report to a enterprise report? I mean, if you're just doing reports in a Windows application, let's say, do we need a SQL reporting services?
You may not in those types of situations. The other feature of reporting services is it includes an ASPX app that provides a user interface for reporting. So a user does not need to have any type of an application on their desktop except for a browser.
Okay.
And then they can come into the Report Manager application and browse through a folder structure, find a report that they're looking for, and execute it within the browser, and having a zero client install. Okay. And that works, of course, very nice for users who are just doing reporting type of applications and don't need the input screens, data entry screens, but just need to get the information out of the database.
Yeah, I see, like obviously the thing about this is that it'll scale, right? So you're using SQL Server as the engine to drive the reports, and we all know how scalable SQL Server is. So that's to me is the big benefit, is that you can serve up lots of simultaneous reports off the live data.
Exactly, and it will even go so far as to support a web farm of reporting front ends off a single report catalog SQL Server database. So the scalability is tremendous.
Now, it's been out for just a little while. How many people are using it? How popular is?
Well, the last stats that I was able to get from Microsoft were from about the end of July, so that'd be at about a 6-month milestone. And at that point, they had over 80,000 downloads of the reporting services installed from the website. So, and I do know that the book buying has been tremendous, which is wonderful. So there seems to be a lot of interest in there. People at least taking a look at it as an alternative to other reporting solutions.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, it's been fun to catch a little bit and be along for that ride.
How is reporting services architected? What's the how is it designed?
There's actually two pieces. We've kind of alluded to it a little bit, but the report authoring that Microsoft delivers is actually incorporated right into Visual Studio 2003. There's a new project type called a Business Intelligence Project, and then within that project you can start creating your reports. And you'll find that the report layout is very similar to screen layout for a Windows or a web app, rather than a very strict banded report type of layout. You actually have different types of components, a table which is similar to a grid layout, and a matrix which will give you more of a pivot table type of an output, and some other layout types of objects, and then text boxes and charts that you can put within that. So the development is very flexible to create very simple or very complex reports.
Okay.
Once your report is created, then to make it available to the user, as we said, you deploy it from your development environment up to your reporting services server.
Mm-hmm.
There's a database that must reside in SQL Server 2000 called the Report Catalog, actually a couple of databases that work together. And that's where the report definition gets stored. Let me back up just a second. The report is stored in an XML structure, which is called the Report Definition Language, or RDL.
Okay.
And that's a standard that Microsoft has created and published. So it is out there. And there have been several third parties that have created report authoring environments as well. And those reports that are created by the third-party environments can then be deployed to your report server and look just like a report that came out of Visual Studio. The other pieces on the server, there's a Windows service that interacts with that report catalog. And then there are two different interfaces to that Windows service. One is a web service that you can call directly, and also the Report Manager ASPX application that I was speaking about that will provide a complete user interface for reporting.
And that's like it has folders
Yeah,
for reports that are defined?
It has a hierarchical folder structure. It looks very much like Windows file structure.
Uh-huh.
You can set up security on the folder levels. You can set up security on individual reports. So you can manage that environment very carefully, have different users that can see different folders, different reports,
right,
and create a nice custom environment.
Any indications as to, the largest implementation yet of the? I mean, have you seen an absolutely monstrous implementation of reporting services?
I have not personally. I know there are some. I've heard some buzz about some people that have been looking at setting up multiple web farms for that. But personally, I haven't been able to touch and feel one and see what that looks like.
We'll have to check back with you in a few months.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. See what I can find out.
Cool. Hey, it's Carl here talking about our friends at Data Dynamics, proud sponsors of .NET Rocks and lots of community support in other ways. And I'm here to talk about Data Dynamics Active Reports for .NET. Now, this is an embedded report designer and report generator that works right in your Visual Studio project. You can embed the reports in your assemblies for ASP.NET and Windows applications. Very familiar user interface, works with C# and VB.NET. Includes a beginner report wizard and Microsoft Access Report Import Wizard. It allows the designer to host third-party controls like chart controls, image controls, right in your report. Fully exposed object model lets you modify and build reports dynamically, and of course, exports to PDF and HTML. All the features that you want. Easy to use, easy to learn. And you know what? It ain't going to break the bank. That's why we love it so much. It's great. Great stuff. Well, I think ActiveReports.net deserves a little attention by you. So go up to datadynamics.com right now and check them out. How is this being used? I mean, are there obviously, corporate reports, yes, but what are some maybe more innovative uses of reporting than just strictly looking at numbers?
One of the things that we did right about the time that Reporting Services was coming out is we set up a little introduction for some of our clients to come and see this new product. And we actually used Reporting Services as our mass mailing source. There's a feature within Reporting Services where you can set up a report to be sent out to a mailing list. So if you've got a report that is maybe sales figures and you want to mail that out to all of your sales staff at the beginning of each month, you can schedule that task and it will send out that report to a mailing list that you generate. We use that to actually publicize our event. We sent a report out to some of our clients, and in that report was a URL that they could click, and that would actually point them at our report server, which would give them another report giving them details about this event we were planning. And then on that report, there was a link which went to a third report that actually registered them for the event. Wow. So that was kind of fun to be able to say, there was this new reporting services thing. It's really cool. And, oh, by the way, this whole registration process has been totally driven by reporting services.
Where's the line between a website and a report?
That's a great question. Reporting services, one of the nice features is that it does allow a level of interactivity. You can have hotspots in your report to click on that will either expand another section within the report to allow a drill down. You can have a hotspot that will launch a second report, jump you to a second report. Reporting services calls that drill through from one report to another. And you can also have links to web pages, to any URL out there. But that's the extent of the interactivity with reporting services. You don't have any type of a text input box. You don't have radio buttons. You don't have checkbox.
Okay. You wouldn't use it for an entry form.
So if you've got a strictly browsing application moving from one page to another, and oh, by the way, you want to dynamically query data onto those pages from some type of data source, you could do that entirely within reporting services. But as soon as you need to collect additional user input where they've got to type something or check a box or select a radio button, then you've got to move back to a more traditional ASPX page or something else along those lines.
What are the new features in reporting services for 2005?
2005 is going to have several different things that are going to be exciting, and the product will be about a year and a half old when 2005 comes out, assuming that Microsoft can stay on their current schedule. And one of the new features will be a browser-based report authoring environment. As I said, there's some third parties that have created these to date. Right now, in 2000, you have to have Visual Studio if you're going to use the standard Microsoft implementation to create reports. But in 2005, there's going to be a browser-based environment. It's very much aimed at maybe your power user type of person who needs to create some ad hoc reports, but probably doesn't know how to write a SQL select statement and those types of things. It was actually a product created by a company called ActiveViews, which was purchased by Microsoft in the past 6 months or so. And Microsoft has taken their product and done some massaging on it and reworked the user interface. But the way that product works is you will have ActiveViews, or whatever Microsoft eventually calls this environment, look at your database that you're going to report from, and it generates a business model off of that, a data model. And then the user will build reports based on that data model that'll have the nice user-friendly metadata in it and those types of things. And it will then create the select statements for the user.
So that's sort of like, the wizard stuff.
Exactly, exactly. But even to a greater extent, where they don't have to know anything about select and where clauses and all of that good stuff. They can just start doing that. Another fun feature of that environment is it can build this drill-through reporting on the fly based on your foreign key relationships within SQL Server. So if you've got a parent table and then a child table with the foreign key in it, it can automatically generate that drill down to the next level.
Oh, that's cool.
And in fact, it will keep doing that as long as it keeps finding foreign key relationships to navigate down through.
Do you see a lot of non-programmers, a lot of business intelligence people, for lack of a better word, working with SQL, building reports?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I think there'll be even more when this ActiveViews becomes available. But with reporting services, it removes reporting at least one step from the application. It's not something we're compiling into an exe now. It's something we're deploying onto a server, and it's a little less threatening environment for users to get in there who might not think of themselves as programmers, but who want to be able to kind of do their own reporting and not have to always be talking to a programmer and saying, now I want this, now I want that. They can get in there and start doing some drag and drop and get their own stuff out of there.
Yeah.
Another new feature that's coming out in 2005 in conjunction with the new version of Visual Studio, the Whidbey, is that there will actually be an object now that you can embed in your applications. So we talked about with 2000, you have to have the report server to deploy your reports to and make everything happen. In 2005 and Whidbey, there'll be an object that you can embed in your Windows app, and then you essentially deploy your reports right to that object, and it will be its own self-contained reporting environment. So you can go, if it's appropriate, you can go back to that embedded report type of architecture, or you have the option to use the report server, or the same reports, the same RDL format files will work in both cases. You could create one report, deploy it to this embedded object for some of your applications, deploy the same report to a server for other users to use through Report Manager. So it'd be a very flexible environment.
You said that... yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's some other minor changes in the user interface that'll be coming along that people have been asking for, nice ways to do date selection and multi-select drop-downs, and MDX queries for any of you OLAP people out there are going to be supported in 2005.
Cool.
So lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of good stuff.
So should we wait? Is the question Rory hates. Rory's like, no, you should not wait. Shut up, Carl.
Well, any reports that you create in 2000 are going to be compatible with 2005. The RDL format is going to remain intact.
Yeah.
So there won't be any big conversion process or anything like that you'll have to go through. So no, don't wait. Rush out there right now.
See, Rory? So the answer isn't always wait.
Yeah, no, I buy that. Yeah, I'm done with that.
Well, you said that it requires SQL Server 2000, but what about the OS? What's the minimum OS requirement for the reporting engine?
The minimum OS is... I believe it's Windows 2000. I could be. I believe it's Windows 2000. So 2000 XP 2003.
So, Brian, we have a question from the chat room from Matt Trevors in Pittsburgh. And he says, Brian, I set up SQL Reporting Services, got everything working, and it was great. And I can't remember why, but I changed the database connection. Now I get the following error: failed to decrypt symmetric key. Most likely cause is the service username has changed. This is generated in Event Viewer with a scheduling and delivery source. Ideas?
Reporting Services saves all of its configuration information in .config files, so in an XML format. But Microsoft was smart enough to encrypt all of the sensitive information that's required, such as logon and password for the services to run under, etc. It does seem to be a bit vulnerable, however, to having that encryption key either get changed or corrupted. There is a utility for dealing with the encryption key called RS Key Management, RS Key MGMT. And that will allow you to make a backup copy of that encryption key onto a floppy and password protect it. And then will allow you to restore that encryption key. Unfortunately, it's probably too late for that. what you can do is use that RS key management utility to create a new key, and you will, however, need to recreate any logon information that had been encrypted into the config file previously.
Cool.
So just to maybe change the subject a little bit, what's business intelligence, right? Because Carl and I have kind of had a little bit of back and forth here over IM, about where we want to take the conversation. We've kind of been arguing about what it is. Can you tell us, from your point of view, what's going on?
Well, yeah, I can give you my point of view and what I've been reading and hearing. Business intelligence is anything that's going to help a decision maker make an intelligent business decision in running whatever the corporation, the enterprise is. And that can be, anyone from the CEO down to a shift manager on an assembly line that, has to decide how many widgets gets turned out, over the next shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is it really, though? I mean, that's a very broad general definition. What does that manifest itself as?
It can manifest itself again, because you've got such a broad range of decision makers, it can manifest itself in a number of ways. At the high end, we're usually talking about what are called key performance indicators. Things that an upper level manager or CEO can look at and say, I know that it's important for my profitability to stay above X level, or that my receivables don't fall below this amount in arrears, and to have those displayed as not a number, but as some kind of an icon that says, a stoplight that says green means everything's great, yellow means we're slipping into where we're not supposed to be, and red meaning we've got a big problem. And then allowing that upper manager to look things over and quickly say, okay, here's an indicator that's yellow, here's an indicator that's red, and then drill down into those to actually see the numbers behind them. But to be able to present that information, in a graphical format that can be absorbed very quickly.
Have you seen the gauge controls from Dundas?
I have not. I'm familiar with that, but I haven't taken a look at them.
Well, basically,
personally.
Lots of different dials and meters and gauges and stuff. And, and the first thing I thought of when I saw those was, man, I got to hook those up to some performance counters and some web services and make myself a dashboard.
There you go.
So I can see what's going, see what my bandwidth is like, see what my server storage usage is like, and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
I guess, would that fall into the category of business intelligence?
Absolutely. That's going to help you make intelligent decisions about, managing that server and making sure it's operating at its peak the way it's supposed to be.
Who comes up with these names?
What about DICE?
DICE? What?
Yeah, business intelligence decision making. DICE, Magic 8 Balls, dartboard.
Yeah, what happened to the good old fashioned way, man?
Pin the tail on the decision.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Business stupidity. Business random chance.
Well, we'll have to come up with the Magic 8 Ball gauge that will tell you yes.
Well, what I want to know is
definitely or.
I want to know, when did this term just suddenly arrive, and what were we doing before business intelligence? Was it, do you know what I mean?
Magic 8 Ball.
No, I know, but what did they call it? I mean, every once in a while these new terms come up for totally freaking obvious things that, and people use them all the time. And
that is a good question.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
Well, we used to have OLAP was called data warehousing, and I don't think anybody could figure out why the heck you wanted to throw all your data in a warehouse.
Yeah, right. Who's got the
So
key?
they had to come up with something that was racier and had a little bit more immediate meaning for some of these decisions.
Yeah, OLAP?
Yeah, what the?
Well, it's an acronym. That's kind of sexy to developers. That's like putting a garter belt on a term, you know?
Good Lord.
Like a big tattoo on the butt of data warehousing.
I mean, don't you think these terms should be like run through a little, popularity checker, a little sort of stupidity filter before they're allowed to spread like wildfire? I don't know.
So we need the W3C for acronyms and technology terms,
I guess. So I guess, reporting in this kind of digital dashboard kind of graphical software is really what you're talking about when you mean business intelligence. Here's a question for you. What opportunities does SQL Server 2005 give you over SQL Server 2000 for business intelligence?
Well, with each of the past couple releases of SQL, starting with 7, we've had data warehousing, business intelligence now features, and Microsoft just kind of expanded on that each time. 2005 really blows it wide open. They've totally rewritten the data transformation services, the DTS service, from the ground up. They're expecting us to have between a 10% and a 600% performance improvement.
Wow.
And using DTS to pull data from, in a business intelligence environment, to pull data from your transactional database into your business intelligence, your OLAP database. That they've added a lot of features to help massage that data. There's now some fuzzy logic features in DTS, so you can turn that loose on doing some of your matching to get your data cleaned up as it's passing through that pipeline.
People are using fuzzy logic to do what?
When you're taking data from your transactional database or maybe multiple transactional databases, and now you've got to cleanse it so that it's all consistent, it all lines up. When you mush it all together into your data warehouse, your OLAP database, sometimes it's helpful if you can have some very complex algorithms to help make those matches and line things up.
Oh, okay.
If you've got 2 or 3 different databases within the enterprise that have client names and addresses, and of course things are going to be entered a little differently, and maybe you can use some fuzzy logic to match up addresses and have it recognize that AVE and Avenue and those types of things are the same.
Basically the same thing. That's awesome, because my rice cooker has fuzzy logic, and if you it doesn't matter how much water you put in it, it cooks a perfect cup of rice every single time. It always comes out perfectly fluffy. You can really put in as much water as you want.
Really?
I'm not making this up. I know you guys think I'm lying, but you can actually do that. It was almost a $300 rice cooker, but it's gorgeous, and it probably does the same thing to transactional databases.
There you go. There you go.
I want to know, Brian, what namespace is the fuzzy logic object in?
My understanding, and I've got to get and play with this some more, but my understanding is what's actually happening is you're taking some of these high-powered mathematical data mining algorithms, which are essentially pattern matching algorithms, and you're actually able to take this data mining stuff and apply it to the data as it's coming through the DTS pipeline. Oh. So that's actually where it's coming from, is it's taking these pattern matching algorithms that are used for data mining and applying it as the data comes in to clean it up.
Okay.
So another new area in 2005 is the data mining, different types of algorithms that you can apply to your data to look for various patterns. Has expanded from I think it's 3 to 10 or something like that. So a lot more variety and capability there. The other big new feature in 2005 is called Unified Dimensional Model, and it's actually a way to create a single entry point that can span multiple data warehouses, data marts. It can even sit on top of transactional data.
What did you call this?
Yeah,
Unified Dimensional Model, UDM, another acronym to put in the soup.
Unified Dementia Model.
Yeah. But did you use the word data mart? Data mart?
I did.
Is that like Circle K? I mean, I've never heard of data mart. That's like
a data mart is like a mini data warehouse.
Oh, cool.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of the convenience store of data warehouses.
Okay, Okay, no, that makes sense to me. Okay, yeah, sure.
So it's a smaller version.
Nothing to do with Walton or anything like that, or Super K.
Yeah, they don't sell ho-hos or anything. Ding dongs.
No. So, the UDM is something that Microsoft is very excited about for all of us OLAP developers to actually create another layer on top of multiple data warehouses. And as I said, this can even sit on top of transactional data, but provide more of a dimensional OLAP type view to that data without having to actually suck it into an OLAP database.
That's like of a complexity of application that I have no desire to write ever. I mean, that's for some serious hardcore data right there.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Well, although the idea in 2005 is that we've gradually been bringing business intelligence type tools and moving it down scale. So now you don't have to be the mega conglomerate corporation with the huge budget and the mainframe farm to do this type of data analysis. You've now got the tools that used to be up there in the ivory tower available in a very small enterprise, manufacturing company, sales company, that you can get those same types of assistance in combing through your data, sales data, manufacturing data, find those patterns that are going to help you make better decisions in the future.
Our old friend Sahil Malek in the chat room has a couple questions for you about SQL Server Reporting Services. One, what about the ability to restrict access to reports based upon my organization's very own authentication infrastructure, ADS or LDAP? And two, what about cross-browser compatibility or 508 compliance?
All right. The first question here, custom authentication. By default, the web service interface and the report manager interface use integrated Windows authentication.
Okay.
So and of course that's all driven through IIS, expecting that user to be authenticated when they hit that web app. Mm-hmm. You can, however, create your own custom authentication and authorization that works with reporting services. It's not trivial, but it can be done. And there is an example in my book that you can use as a go-by. Microsoft, I think, also has some sample code in C#, and I've got an example in VB.NET. So you can wire in whatever authentication you're using within your company and get that to work with reporting services.
Cool. How about the cross-browser thing?
Cross-browser is a little different bugaboo there. For the most part, if you're going to use the HTML format, it's going to work better in IE. There's just no two ways about it. You can step down the compatibility, I believe, from 4.2, if I remember off the top of my head, to HTML3, if that helps get you some additional compatibility. But probably the best way to handle that is to look at rendering your reports in a PDF format or a TIFF format, although the TIFFs tend to get rather large pretty quick.
Doesn't it just use ASP.NET and ASP.NET controls, which automatically render to different browsers, or?
To some extent. But it is rendering. It does have its own rendering engine that's not always going to take advantage of those.
Okay. Well, let's just talk briefly about your book, Microsoft SQL Server 2000 Reporting Services. Obviously, you've sort of been around since the beginning of this product, and what's so great about it?
Well, it is a complete overview of the product. It starts out and covers the basics, walks you through installing the product, planning your architecture. It has an introduction, again, for those power users who want to get into reporting and aren't as up on writing that select statement. It'll start and walk you through that, and then moves along with report samples, and we'll take you through managing the report server. And as I said, it'll even get as complicated as working through writing custom authentication and implementing that with the report server.
Okay.
One of my pet peeves with technology books is code snippets, where you find exactly what you need and you type in the code that's in the snippet, and it doesn't work because there was some import that you had to do up here, or something else that the author assumed that you knew that you don't. So what I try to do in the book is present complete examples for everything. So you've always got a report that goes from starting with a blank slate to ending up with a working report with various features demoed within it. So that's my approach, and I've been able to actually do some training using the book as the curriculum, which has been great fun.
Yeah.
Gotten feedback on that, and has been well received so far. So hope to continue that.
Well, Rory's got one more question. And,
Well, what about performance tips? I'm not talking about like in bed or anything. I'm talking about specifically related.
Where did that come from, dude?
Well, I don't know. I mean, different people take questions in different ways. I'm just asking about performance tips. And to me, when I think performance, look, I mean, I hang out with a lot of different crowds. I'm just trying to specify. Look, can I just ask the question, Carl? Could you stop trying to drive the show and control it? Hey, could you get off my back? Look, I'm really sorry about this. Carl does this. So performance tips. You got any performance tips about performance? Tippy tips? Sure. I can come up with a couple here. One thing for report authoring. A lot of times we've got a standard header and footer, a standard layout that we want to start with reports. You can actually create report templates. Essentially, you create a report and put on that report the various pieces of layout that you want to see as the starting point for all of your reports. Maybe it's the company logo at the top, page number at the bottom. Create that report and save it to that .rdl file where that report structure is. And then you can copy that to a folder within the report setup and have that show up on your new items dialog. And you can select that and have that come up with your new report pre-populated. Okay.
And I can tell you where that goes if you really want to hear this god-awful path.
Sure, what the hell?
It's in the default, the standard install, it's under Program Files, Microsoft SQL Server, 80, Tools, Report Designer, Project Items, Report Project. You put that RDL file in there, and boom, you've got your own custom report template. And now this works like a Word document template. You get some content that you start with. It's not a cascading style sheet where you can go back and make changes later. And
obviously, it doesn't work on Windows 95. The file name's too long.
The other thing is that After the report gets printed out, whoever takes it to the boss could run, and that would make it go faster.
Yeah. There you go.
That's my performance tip. I'm a beginner, but I'm an idea guy. So
hey, there you go. There you go. One other performance tip, if you're up for one more.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
Reporting Services has a caching feature that you can turn on for individual reports, so that that report can, either the first time a user runs the report, that report format gets cached, or you can have it scheduled to be run as a background process and cached. Then, as subsequent users come along, that report gets pulled out of cache rather than requerying the data. So you offload some stress on your database server, as well as allowing the user to get that report back much quicker.
Okay.
One drawback with that is it's dependent on the parameters that the user specifies when they request that report. Naturally, if you pass those parameters through to the select statement, you can't cache the data.
Yeah.
One way to get around that, if you're dealing with a reasonable amount of data, is to select all of the data back into the report. Again, you don't want to do this with million record result sets, but if you have a reasonable size, pull all the data into the report and then filter it based on the user's input parameters within the report itself. And that way it will always pull the report from cache no matter what set of user parameters are provided.
Cool, man. Brian, do you have a website that we can go to and get some more information on your book and on your places we're going to be speaking and that kind of thing?
Yeah, you can go to www.teamscs.com.
That just sounded like FFF.
SCS, Superior Consulting Service.
Okay, cool. Awesome. We got any last-minute words of advice or calls to action for the listeners before we say goodbye?
Just check out Reporting Services. You'll love it.
Awesome. Listen, thanks a lot for coming on the show. It's been enlightening, and I'd like to thank everybody in the chat room as well. On behalf of myself, Rory, out in Portland, you rock, dude, and Jeff in the sound room, the sound monkey.
Yeah.
Have a good week, you guys. Good night.